add and subtract fractions. Today we're going to talk about how to add and subtract fractions. Now, before we get into all the math, what would be a real life example where we add fractions with the same denominators? Let's say I have a cup of coffee, and that coffee is filled about 1/5 of the cup. And let's say now we dump that cup of coffee into another cup filled with 3/5 milk. How full a cup of coffee and milk will be now? Notice how all three cups here are the same exact size. If they weren't the same size, then we wouldn't have the same denominators. Now to solve this, all you need is three simple steps. First, whenever your denominators are the same, you can simply copy it over here into your answer, just like this. Second, to get the numerator, take the two numerators in the problem and simply add them. So we have 1 plus 3, and that will equal to 4. So our answer will be 4/5. Third and the last step, simplify your answer. But since 4 and 5 don't share any common factors beside 1, this fraction is already simplified and we are done. Easy, isn't it? Let's try another one. Again, our denominators are the same. They are both 21. So we can copy 21 over here to our answer's denominator. Now, take the two numerators in our problem. And this time we're going to subtract. We have a negative 15 minus 4. And that will equal to a negative 19 over 21. So our answer is negative 19 over 21. And since 19 and 21 don't share any common factors beside 1, this fraction is in the simplest form. Now, let's do one more that does involve some simplifying. So again, both of our denominators are 18, so that will be our answer's denominator as well. And to get the numerator, take the numerators in the problem and add them. So 13 plus 3 will be equal to 16. So that will give us an answer of 16 over 18. You notice anything about the top and bottom numbers here? 16 and 18 are both even. So this means this fraction can be simplified and we can divide the top and bottom by 2. So 16 divided by 2 is 8 and 18 divided by 2 is 9. And now 8 and 9 don't share any common factors besides 1. So this fraction is officially simplified, and we know that we are done. Well, let's talk about how to add and subtract fractions with different denominators. Your number one goal is to make their denominators the same. Because once you make them the same, we know how to easily add and subtract that now. There are three different ways that you can make the denominators the same. So the first way is where you fit one denominator into the other. The second way is where you find the least common multiple between the two denominators. And the third way is where you simply multiply the denominators. In all three ways, you're essentially converting your fractions into equivalent fractions. But the first way, you're only converting one fraction, but in the second and third way, you're converting two fractions. So that's why the first way is much easier and faster to do. But it only works for a few situations. So whenever you add and subtract fractions with different denominators, it's always good to check if you can use the first way, and then if you can't, move on to the second and third. Alright, enough of that. Let's actually go through this with a little example. Let's say our phone battery was 2/3 full, and then we charged it another 1/6 way up. And for this, we can use the first method, where one of our denominators fits into the other. The first thing you should always look for is if one of them can fit into the other. In this case, 3 can fit into 6 two times. And since it fits into 6 two times, we need to multiply the top and bottom of the fraction by 2. So this will transform it into 2 times 2 is 4 and 3 times 2 is 6. So it will be 4 over 6. After doing this, now the denominators of both fractions are the same and we can easily add them. So 4 over 6 plus 1/6. So adding across the top, we got 4 plus 1 and our denominator remains as 6. And this will give us a fraction 5 over 6. And since 5 is a prime number, we know that our answer is in its simplest form. Let's move on to another example, and for this one, we're going to use the second method, where we find the least common multiple between the denominators. Let's say one day you buy 5-6 meters of cloth and then use 3/8 of it to make a skirt. Now, what's the first thing you should always ask yourself? when your denominators are different, you want to check if one of your denominators can fit into the other one, right? So does 6 fit into 8 or does 8 fit into 6? Unfortunately, no. So we need to use either the second or the third method. And for this example, we will be using the second way, where we find the least common multiple between the denominators. What we're going to do is list out some multiple of 6 and 8. And what you want to do is start with the smaller number, which is 6. So 1 times 6 is 6, 2 times 6 is 12, 3 times 6 is 18, 4 times 6 is 24, and 5 times 6 is 30. And we can keep on going and list out more multiples, but I usually start listing out with just 5 in the beginning. Now, let's list out the multiple of 8. So 1 times 8 is 8, 2 times 8 is 16, and 3 times 8 is 24. And I'm going to stop right here because I see 24 in my other list. So we know that 24 is the least common multiple since it's the smallest multiple that will be in both of these lists. Now, that we have our least common multiple, we're going to change both of our fractions into equivalent fractions. And these equivalent fractions will have a denominator of 24. So let's start with the 5 over 6. To change this, we first ask ourselves, how many times does 6 fit into 24? 4 times. Since 6 times 4 is 24. So what are we going to do is multiply the top and bottom by 4. So 5 times 4 will be equal to 20. How many times does 8 fit into 24? 3 times. Since 8 times 3 is 24. So this time we're going to multiply the top and bottom by 3. And 3 times 3 is 9. Now multiplying everything out, our two new fractions will be 20 over 24 minus 9 over 24. And since our denominators are now the same, we can easily solve this by just subtracting the numerators. So 20 minus 9 will be equal to 11 over 24. Now 11 is a prime number, so we know that this fraction is already in the simplest form. Let's try another example using the third method. So let's say it's your birthday and you have some leftover cake. You have 3/4 of one cake and 1/6 of another cake. And for some reason, you just want to know how much leftover cake you have all together. So this would be the problem. 3/4 plus 1/6. And since the denominators are different, we want to make them the same so we can solve it. Now, when your denominators are different, what is the first thing you always check for? You would check if one of them can fit into the other one, right? So does 4 fit into 6 or 6 fit into 4? Nope. So we're going to choose either the second or third way to solve this. And for this example, we're going to use the third way and multiply our denominators together. So what you're going to do is to take this 4 down here and use it to multiply the numerator and denominator of the other fraction. And then take this 6 here to multiply the numerator and denominator of the other fraction. So 3 over 4 becomes the 18 over 4 times 6 is 24, and 1/6 becomes 1 times 4 is 4, and 4 times 6 is also 24. So both of our denominators are now the same and we can easily add them. But let's pause here for just a second. Did you notice that this was a lot faster than the second way, where we found the least common multiple? Did you notice that this was a lot faster than the second way, where we found the least common multiple? So why wouldn't we always use the third way every time? Well, the third way is easy in the beginning, but you will most likely end up with a large fraction for the answer that can be hard to simplify later. So you really do have to pick your battles. You either use the second method, where you find the least common multiple and don't really need to simplify your answer very much, or you do the third method, where it's really easy to find the equivalent fractions, but you spend more time simplifying your answer. So it's completely up to you which method you prefer using for that particular problem. Now, let's go back and finish our problem. Since the denominators are the same, we can easily add our numerators. So 18 plus 4 over 24 will be equal to 22 over 24. So what do you notice about 22 and 24? Well, they're both even, aren't they? So we can simplify these by dividing both of them by 2. 22 divided by 2 is 11, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. And since 11 is a prime number, we know that this fraction is now in simplest form. Well, and there we have it. You now know how to add and subtract fractions with different denominators.